The word of the day for today, February 25th, 2022, is Coronach. 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 It's a noun, and it means a song or lamentation for the dead, a dirge. You may imagine or may guess that it comes from either Irish Gaelic or Scottish Gaelic, both similarly spelled and meaning the same thing, a dirge. And they are made up of a prefix, comh, com, and then the ending, the Scottish Gaelic ending, ranach, ranach, meaning outcry. So com, meaning together, and ranach, meaning outcry. So crying out together, which to me, that's a pretty good definition of what a lamentation is as well. And these are particular, if we look at the examples that dictionary.com uses, it is used in the setting of a funeral, of a celebration, of a life, and lamenting the death, and expressing together sorrow over the loss of a person. And being used in a collective ritual moment. I think one of the ways that this could be useful is as a reminder that at different points in our histories, we have used specific communal activities to create a pattern of life. And oftentimes these patterns of life create the context for storytelling in your creative writing. So for instance, there was a time when you would a first date in a narrative would be a movie. There's a time, what would be 90s or 2000s, where a first date in a narrative would be coffee, as the these coffee shops started to boom and Friends happen, right? There are these underlying things that we don't even think about life. They're just these things that we do, sort of, and to me they end up being ritualistic. In various cultures, in various cultures, different things set these patterns for life. So there was a time in Russian literature where the description of the Orthodox Russian Christian lifestyle or patterns of life was like very powerful. And you could tell that it was the characters were living in a world that was, whose rhythms were based on the festivals of the church year and the seasons of the church year. And so they were headed to this festival or preparing for that festival. And because of this festival, which is a larger festival, more people were blah, 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 right? Which creates excuses for interaction for characters in the same way that, as we know, there's a history of meals in creative works. And so, right, people gather around the table and things happen. Conversations happen. Personalities clash. and story gets moved forward in a very grounded and very relatable moment. Coronach is an example of something that we are, I think, more disconnected from and less comfortable with, at least in the society that I live in, which is practices, rituals around death and dying and funerals. But thinking about how your world or your different groups of people in your created world deal with death. What practices have they instituted to deal with death? And what do you think, as you think about Coronach, a lamentation for the dead in which sorrow spills out of people together, and at the same time the accomplishments, the good deeds, the grace, the beneficence of an individual are celebrated? What are the practices that your people in your stories have built around and in order to deal with death, and how does that particular action, right? So how do you see Coronach functioning as it pertains to your characters? And a lot of this can be influenced by your own experience with how death and dying, your own experience of it. And so that's an opportunity in creative writing to dig deep self-exploration and also to experiment and expose ideas and possibilities, perhaps to do some research and understand more deeply how we've dealt with it in various societies over time. But on a very basic level, it's practices around death and dying are potentially very powerful, and at the same time, it's powerful, it's heightened, but it's very grounded type of activity in the life of your characters. So, Coronach.